Hey guys, welcome back to Character Design, a Touch Plus premium course. I'm Ian Yates, and in this quick video we're going to look at character props. Let's begin by taking a quick look at what we're going to cover in this video. Well, we're going to dive right in and think about relevant props for our student character. We'll then think about symbols and comic conventions. Lastly, we'll finish off with some further reading, and I'll leave you with an assignment to complete before the next video. Okay, props. What do I mean by props? Well, I'm talking about subtle, everyday accessories and objects which belong with our character. They can be useful for communicating, perhaps emphasizing something. If our character were a fireman, then a hose and fire axe would be logical props to include with our illustrations. And that's an obvious example, but props can also be less obvious. Subtle additions which may not be so instantaneously connected with your character, so cliched, may help add depth to your character. In later videos we're going to talk about story, history and context. Giving our character a story is a vital part of helping the audience connect with him, and props can help us there. Consider a bird, a simple bird. Here you can see it singing away. You've pretty much figured him out, right? He's a bird, happy singing. What's to figure out? Now consider the same bird with a crash helmet on his head. Now there's an extra dimension to him, see? We don't necessarily know anything more about him, but we know that there's more to find out. Our curiosity is prickled, all thanks to a simple character prop. Another advantage this simple random prop has provided us is in making our character identifiable. Stick this bird amongst a load of other birds and you'd be able to easily recognize him. He's become memorable. Now let's consider some props we can include with our student. Here you can see I've got a piece of paper with several copies of the same sketch on it. This is quite an efficient way of doing things. I've just taken one of the existing sketches of our student, scanned it in, and I've duplicated it several times in Photoshop and printed out this duplicate copy. It's a very efficient way of sketching on each one and trying different combinations of various things. So that's a handy way to approach things. So we're thinking about props. I can now take a coloured pencil or whatever I feel like using and put some typically geeky things on our student just to help things, just to help clarify things. Perhaps a pair of spectacles. Fairly standard stuff, fairly cliched. Maybe a pocket with some pens in it or something. A briefcase or something along those lines. Yeah, something like that. Now don't forget, he's obviously a student. That's what we're aiming for, but let's try and add some further dimension to his story with other things. For example, we could add, just to be completely sublime and ridiculous, a bow and arrow perhaps. It's unlikely that this will make the final cut of our character, but you may as well experiment. Something along those lines. Or perhaps a skateboard. Could be a typical accessory he carries around with him that suggests a mode of transport and all kinds of other aspects of his character. That's possible. Perhaps he could have even an accompanying character, something else which takes a back role, like a fly, for example, that happens to be with him all the time, or even a little squirrel. A little bit of comic relief. It's quite a common tactic for Disney Pixar cartoons, actually. There's always secondary and tertiary characters that follow the main characters around. There we go. Perhaps we feel like Continuing our experimental sketch works and trying him out with some facial hair. Not exactly a prop, but while we're here, could also experiment with different colour combinations and things while we're here as well. See how he looks with a hat. Perhaps a big 10-gallon Texas hat. Something along those lines. Perhaps not. The glasses I think we'll probably keep. And I'm going to continue playing with various other bits and bobs to illustrate some other aspects of his character. So I'll carry on working with those. But in addition to physical props, illustrations have the advantage of symbolic suggestion. If you've ever read Peanuts comics or watched Charlie Brown cartoons, then you'll undoubtedly recognise Pigpen, Charlie Brown's perpetually dirty friend. How do we know he's dirty? Because he's always followed around by a scribbly, dirty cloud of dirt, with fleas and bits bouncing all over the place. This is exaggeration for effect. In real life this would be unusual, but illustrations allow us to symbolise things. And that applies to emotion and action too. There are all kinds of comic conventions, symbolic bits and pieces which you're completely accustomed to, and you process them all the time without even realising. We can allow non-physical things to manifest themselves, just like Pigpen's dirty cloud. It's willing suspension of disbelief. You know these things don't really exist in the physical world, but you accept them and you understand them all the same. Let's take some examples. Have a look at our student character with some symbolic bits and bobs, just to explain what I mean. For example, here we have what's becoming a fairly familiar face to you. You can already see from his eyes that there's a certain amount of surprise in expression. But what would you say if I added 3 simple lines to the drawing? It's a comic convention. It's something which doesn't exist, but it again confirms the startled nature of his emotion. Or how about this? Again, you can tell from his expression what kind of a mood he's in. But we can further enhance what we're doing here by simply adding a little fuming plume of smoke above his head. Again, a comic convention. Or this. Again, his expression is suggesting everything that we need to suggest in order to make it clear that he's drunk or dazed. But you can emphasize exactly what's going on by adding strange little popping effects around his head. These are things that we're all used to, and they all help in the comic world. Even the bird we used as an example earlier, we can tell he's singing because of the symbolic way we've represented music. Okay, it's time for some further reading. I'd like you to read this article I wrote on VectorTuts a while back. In it I talk about illustrating caricatures from the Envato staff, and there's a section where I cover the use of props to complement and enhance each of the caricatures. Now, as usual, we'll round off by me setting some homework. So here's your assignment. Carry on working with whatever it is you're sketching during this series, your version of our student. Consider some of the props that would enhance your character and communicate his or her message even further. Next time on Character Design, we're going to look at practicalities. My name's Ian Yates, and from all of us here at Tuts Plus, thanks for watching.